How's it going? Today, we have finally, the final day of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers. There's a ton of cards to go over since they did a lot of the commons and uncommons to finish out the set. Let's go ahead and get started because we have a lot to go over and I don't want this video to take an hour. Let's go. Getting started with Binding Geist. Right now is a 2 and a blue 3/1 Spirit. Whenever Binding Geist attacks target creature an opponent controls, gets -2/-0 until end of turn. Third for 2. Okay. 1 and a blue. So, kind of cool limited card. If Spectral Binding will be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And it's a aura to enchant a creature, get -2/-. Okay. Moving on to Desperate Farmers, 3 mana 2/2 human peasant lifelink. When another creature you control dies, transform it. And it turns into a 4/3 lifelink. Most of these cards are going to be limited cards to maybe be curve fillers or things like that. So I'm not going to take too much time with the ones that I don't think are going to be really good. This one's kind of average curve filler. Moving on to Ragged Loose. It's a 2 mana 2/1 human peasant. At the beginning of your end step, if you discarded a card this turn, transform it. Which is, I guess, not the easiest thing to do every turn. But Human Warlock is whenever Odious Witch attacks, any player loses a life and you gain a life. So it's a 2 mana 3/3 if you discard a card. It only transforms end step, so it doesn't let you attack with it if you discard a card. It's kind of like Wombo combos with the 3 mana card that reduces your hand size your end step. This is at the beginning of your end step and hand size is the end of your end step, so it kind of doesn't Wombo combo with that, but find a way to discard a card, and this card can be a 2 mana 3/3 and attacking on turn 3. Moving on, 2 Hook Hand Mariner is a 4 mana 4/4 human werewolf, daybound. Okay. It turns into Rip Hook Raider on the other side. Hook Raider can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Okay. So it can't be blocked with creatures by power 2 or less is like one thing that's on Questing Beast decks. This is like a miniature Tiny Whittle Questing Beast. It doesn't have haste, it doesn't have death touch, it doesn't have vigilance, but you know, it's a 4 mana 4/4 with this text. We can dream, can't we? Limited card. Alright, moving on to Bramble Armor. It's a 2 mana artifact equipment. For Bramble Armor enters battlefield, attach it to the target creature you control. Which is pretty cool to have in an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1, which is not nothing, and equipped for 4. So if this said, equipped creature gets +2/+1 and trample, something like that, I think it would be more playable, kind of like a Maul of the Skyclaves type card, because it does attach it and it does have equipped for 4. But I don't see this card seeing play, just because there's no like flying or first strike or trample or anything like that. So I'm gonna give this a pass. Moving on to Sheltering Bows or Bows. It's a 3 mana aura enchant creature. When Sheltering Bows enters the battlefield, draw a card. And a creature gets +1/+3. This is really cool since it cantrips. But I don't even think this makes like green Enchantress decks in Historic or anything. There's no really Enchantress payoff in Standard. So I'm going to give this a pass. Moving on to Blood Servitor. The 3 mana 2/2 construct. Whenever Blood Servitor. Battlefield, create a blood token. 3 mana artifact creature construct. Now this set does work with constructs, so maybe you can find a synergy like that in limited. Creating a blood token is pretty good, but 3 mana for a 2/2. If it was 2 mana, maybe it would see play. And if it was a vampire, but since it's not a vampire and it's 3 mana limited, here we go. Moving on to Adamant Will is a 2 mana instant target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible till end of turn. Now this could see play potentially. Giving a creature +2/+2 and indestructible isn't nothing, especially in constructed when we're probably gonna be playing some Blood in the Snows or Doom Scars or something standard. So not the end of not like the best card ever, but it could see play potentially, I think. Moving on to Estwald Shield Basher is a 4 mana 4/2. Whenever Estwald Shield Basher attacks, you may pay 1. If you do it, gains indestructible till end of turn. Oh. Hey, you have to pay a mana instead of discarding a card? I mean, this card's good and limited. Being a 4/2 indestructible, having to pay only 1 mana to give it indestructible, it attacks through a lot of boards. I can see this card being annoying and limited, but in constructed, not good enough. Moving on to Fierce Retribution. I believe this is I think I've seen this name before. 2 mana instant, cleave for 6 for a target attacking creature. Or if you pay 6 mana, you destroy a creature. That's a lot of mana for the cleave cost. Throwing an attacking creature is okay. But is this better than other things you could be playing, like Fateful Absence and things like that? Doesn't give your opponent a clue token. But 6 mana, though? I mean, destroy target attacking creature isn't that big of a deal. But I think you just play Fateful Absence to cover your bases. Moving on to Heron Blessed Geist. It's a 5 mana 3/3 spirit with flying. Play 3 and a white, exile Heron Blessed Geist from your graveyard. Create 2/1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Activate only if you control an enchantment and only as a sorcery. The activate only if you control as enchantment part makes this not Lingering Souls. But this is pretty darn close to Lingering Souls if you play any enchantments in your deck at all. So, I mean, I kind of like this. It's like the closest thing we'll ever have to Lingering Souls if Lingering Souls actually doesn't get printed into Historic. But this might be a little bit too expensive. But I mean, a 5 mana 3/3 flyer is really good for limited. So we'll see if it does something in limited. I wouldn't be surprised actually if it did something in standard, especially since there's enchantments like Saga still in standard. Moving on to Nebelgast Dialer. It's a 5 mana 2/5 spirit. You can pay a white and tap it. Tap target creature. So pretty good in limited. Unplayable, of course, it's 5 mana in constructed. Moving on to Nurturing Presence. Is a 2 mana aura enchant creature. It has whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. That's not bad. Oh, till end of turn. It's not a counter. Okay, a little bit worse. Whenever it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. Okay. I mean, I don't think this card's that good. I mean, it does make a 1/1. But it does, like, in Auras decks, it benefits you to, like, stack Auras onto a creature, not to go wide. And so, like, this kind of does things. I don't know if you'd want that in your Auras deck. Moving on to Perish Blade Trainee. Is a 2 mana 1/2 human soldier with training. When Perish Blade Trainee dies, put its counters on target creature. So it could be good in a +1/+1 counters deck, but it being 2 mana instead of a 1/2 makes it pretty bad in Historic if you're playing that. Maybe there's a spot for this in standard. Maybe in like the green-white humans deck. Because the green-white humans deck that is going around with definitely really good cards in Crimson Vow coming out. It synergizes with +1/+1 counters as well. And there's also some green and white cards in standard currently that synergizes +1/+1 counters. So maybe it sees a spot in the 2-drop slot. You will see. Moving on. Piercing Light is a 1 mana instant. Deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Scry 1. So 2 mana damage and scry 1 for a 1 mana instant in white is not bad. But the creature has to be attacking or blocking. You can't just hold this open on turn 1. Your opponent plays a 1-drop and use this. That makes this so much worse than it could be. If it dealt 2 damage and scried 1 and didn't say attacking or blocking, we could be talking. But this card is like pretty underwhelming. I like the fact that this text is here. I don't like the fact that this attacking or blocking is. Oh, I don't know about that card. Moving on to Supernatural Rescue. Is a 4 mana aura. This spell has flash as long as you control a spirit. Okay. Whenever you cast a spell, tap up to 2 target creatures you don't control. Enchant creature you control. It's +1/+2. Okay, we've seen similar cards like this before. Not the flash as long as you control a spirit. That's new. But a card that taps your opponent's things. We've seen that before, which is still pretty strong in like a tempo-based limited strategy. This also requires you to have a creature on your board to even cast this, because it's an aura, which makes it a little bit worse, but it does buff your creature. So I kind of like the design of this, but it might be like a little bit hard to pull off. But I can see this card being like okay and limited. Moving on to Traveling Minister. It's a 1 mana 1/1 human cleric. Tap it. Target creature gets +1/+0 till end of turn. You gain a life. Activate only as a sorcery. Activating only as a sorcery is a really big downside for something like this. But if there's a life gain deck, there's a life gain synergies already in this set. So pretty cool card for limited. Not good in constructed. Moving on to Vampire Slayer. Is a 2 mana 2/2 human soldier. Whenever Vampire Slayer deals damage to a vampire, destroy the creature. It deals damage to a vampire, destroy a creature. You're basically just it just trades with a vampire. I don't see it being that good unless you can put like a basilisk collar type card to this card, giving it an equipment or an aura or an enchantment that says this creature can deal damage to something, which doesn't really happen in constructed or even standard for that matter, or even historic. This is like a modern thing you can do with this card. You can give this something, just have it shoot things. But obviously your opponent's thing has to be a vampire, so it's like it would be fun if it said any creature, but it just says vampire, so I'm gonna say no. Moving on to Alchemist Retrieval is a 1-mana instant, 8 for 2. For 1 mana, you can return target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. Okay, so it's like unsummon for only your stuff, but it's for non-land permanents. And then cleave for 2, so you can pay 2 to return a non-land permanent you don't control, or you control to its owner's hand. Just permanent, period. I mean, this is like 2 mana, return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand is good. Is playable in constructed. But I guess it's an upside to have it target your own things for 1 mana. I mean, I could see this card seeing play in some like very niche decks in historic or something, or even standard. Like, I can see it seeing very niche play, especially because it says non-land permanent. It's literally just petty theft, the one side of Brazen Borrower, but it can target your own things for 2 mana. Yes, it doesn't come with a 3/1 flyer on the other side, but still. I think this card has a chance. Not willing to give up on this card. Alright, moving on to Chill of the Grave. It's a 3-mana instant. This costs 1 less if you control a zombie. Tap target creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next end step. Draw a card. Next untap tap. Draw a card. This card's very, 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 very good in limited, but really bad in constructed. It is in a blue-black zombies deck. You want this card because tapping a creature doesn't untap during its next untap tap is a little bit worse than what you want, but it also draws a card. So, like, you can win some combat wars with this card, and you also get to cantrip anyway. I think it's pretty good, especially for being 2 mana if you control a zombie. Alright, moving on to Cradle of Safety is a 2-mana aura with flash, enchant creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, an enchanted creature gains hexproof till end of turn. Oh, it's just till end of turn. Okay. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1. This is a pretty high definition picture of a baby. They put high def pictures of people. I guess they do, right? This is a pretty high def picture of a baby on this card. Or high res too. But it's 2 mana, giving something hexproof till end of turn with flash. It gets +1/+1. I guess you could think of this as like a Snakeskin Veil type card for blue, which isn't nothing. So I'm going to give this card a potentially. Moving on to Cruel Witness. It's a 4-mana 3/3 flyer, which is already insane and limited. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, look at the top card of your library. You may put it in your graveyard. Oh, so it's like, wow. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil. So this is just Dragon Rage Channeler in a 4-mana 3/3 flyer. That's like really good and limited, but too expensive for constructed. I mean, honestly, could see play in constructed, but like we also have the 4-mana dragon that draws cards in this 4-mana spot, so I'm not willing to go that far. But one of the cards that I was wrong about is the Sphinx, the 4-mana Sphinx of Foresight. When you have it in your opening hand, if it's in your opening hand, you can scry 3 or something like that, and it's just a 4-mana 4/4 flyer. So like, things like that can really sneak under you. This card could be one of those cards, but not willing to say that right now. Moving on to Dreadlight Monstrosity. 6-mana 5/5, Ward 2 Crab Horror. This is one horrifying crab. You pay 3 and 2 blue to have it not be blocked this turn. Activate only if you own a card in exile. That's not good, but it could be insane and limited. Fear of Death is a 2-mana aura, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, mill 2. Enchanted creature gets -X/-0, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard. Okay, so it's guaranteed -2/-0. And it could just be -infinite/-0. I can see this card being like format staple in blue decks in limited. It's 2 mana, and your opponent's creature can be like 0 power. Any creature. Doesn't matter what it is. And there's also milling yourself synergies anyway. I think this card's really, really good in limited. Alright. Moving on to Repository Scab is a 4-mana 3/3 zombie. Exploit. When Repository Scab exploits a creature, return target instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, so this is Archaeomancer for zombies. Which is not bad. Really good in Commander. You get to play Archaeomancer and this card. It does have to exploit to do so. It's 4 mana. So I would say really good in limited. Unplayable and constructed. 4 mana is way too expensive. Moving on to Selahaf Entomber. It's a 2 mana 3/3 zombie. Discard a creature card. Draw a card. That's only good if you need to hit your land drops, right? Or maybe you need to put a creature in your graveyard to reanimate again. That's probably like a one-of curve filler. Full draw power engine in your limited deck. Moving on to Serpentine Ambush is a 2-mana. I love this art, by the way. Oh my gosh, I just stopped talking about the card just to say the art. Serpentine Ambush is a 2-mana instant. Until end of turn, target creature becomes a blue serpent with base power and toughness 5/5. Now, this is the combat trick you've been waiting for, Blue. This combat trick is good. You block and then you Serpentine Ambush your thing and just kill their huge thing. Or you attack with everything. They're at 5. They don't block one thing living, and then you just Serpentine Ambush your one thing and they die. I think this card's like really good in limited. It's like a 1 or a 2 of. Alright, moving on to Skywarp Scab is a 5-mana 2/5 flyer. Zombie Drake. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile 2 creatures from your graveyard. If you do, draw a card. A 5-mana 2/5 flyer that draws a card is good in limited. Other than that, not good. But it's a common, so expect to see a lot of this card if you're a limited player, I think. 5-mana 2/5 flyer, already, it would be cool if it had 3 power. 2 power flyer for 5, not that good. Flying in general, really good. 5 toughness flyer, probably blocks every flyer your opponent has, and it also draws a card. I like this. Moving on to Steelclad Spirit is a 2-mana 3/3 spirit with Defender. I like 3/3 Defenders. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, it can attack it as though it didn't have Defender. You can put an aura on this card and then attack with it. But if you don't have if you didn't play an enchantment, you can't attack with it. I mean, if you play some kind of blue tempo deck in Standard, you definitely play this card. This card packs a punch. Alright, moving on to Stitched Assistant is a 3-mana 3/2 zombie with Exploit. When it exploits a creature, scry 1, then draw a card. 3-mana 3/2 zombie, exploit, scry 1, draw. I would say this is pretty good. A 3-mana card that draws a card, if you're exploiting something that was going to die anyway, like a Decayed Zombie or something, maybe. I don't know. Scry 1, draw card's not that bad. But just being a 3-mana 3/2 is not good if you don't exploit it. I'm going to say a little tiny bit below average. Alright, moving on to Siphon Essence is a 3-mana instant, counter target creature or planeswalker spell. Create a blood token. We've seen a card before that counters a creature or planeswalker. But it doesn't make a blood token. So, I mean, can't cast non-creature spells, but in limited there's a lot of creatures anyways. Has a little bit of upside in countering a planeswalker like the new Chandra Dress to Kill that we've seen in this format already. This is obviously not better than Salt Coming or anything like that, so it's not going to be played and constructed. But in limited, maybe it has a chance. Moving on to Wanderlight Spirit is a 3-mana 2/3 with flying. It's a spirit. Wanderlight Spirit can block only creatures with flying, so it has the Brazen Borrower text. 3-mana 2/3 flyer, not that bad. I mean, it can't really block, but it can block little 1/1 spirits that your opponent might be creating in limited. Not bad. Moving on to Aim for the Head is a 3-mana sorcery. Choose one. Exile target zombie. Target opponent exiles 2 cards from their hand. Oh my gosh. The Mind Rot that exiles? It also exiles a creature. Holy crap. I think this card's good in limited. Like, it has the upside of just, like, exiling zombies, but you also just mind rot them. I'm gonna be having, if I play limited, I'm gonna have some fun with that card. Alright, moving on to Bleed Dry. It's a 3-mana instant. Target creature gets -13 till end of turn. If it would die, exiled instead. Oh my gosh. Wow. If this was 3 mana, it would be insanity. But it's not 3 mana. 4 mana. Which means one of two things. This card's good and limited already. This card's insane and limited. Like, this is just premium, primo, common removal. But in standard, this can get rid of things that are indestructible. So we got that going for us. So maybe it sneaks its way into like a little tiny sideboard slot. Moving on to Blood Fountain. It's a 1-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, create a blood token. Pay 4 mana and tap it. Sacrifice Blood Fountain. Oh, wow. Sacrifice itself. Turn up to 2 target creatures. Give it to your hand. Oh my gosh, if this is sent to the battlefield. But it says to the hand, no! What did I do? Alright. I don't know about this card. 4 mana, tap it, return 2 creatures. It's 1 mana, make a blood token, which is not good. But recycling 2 creatures is good for 1 card. If you have blood token synergies, maybe. Diregraph Scavenger is a 4-mana 2/3 zombie bear death touch. Whenever it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. 4-mana 2/3 death touch to have that ability? I don't know. I mean, death touch is pretty good. I'll go for a solid below average. Moving on to Doom Dissenter. This is actually a reprint. 2-mana 1/1. When it dies, make a 2/2. Kind of glad they have this in the format, to be honest, because there's human synergies and there's zombie synergies. But in a zombie deck, 2-mana 1/1, dies, make a 2/2. Not that bad. Moving on to Gift of Fangs is 1-mana aura, enchant creature. Creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a vampire. Otherwise, it gets -2/-2. Whoa! For 1 mana? 1 mana? Wait, this is really good in historic black-white auras. Whoa. Okay, so they already play. Wait. They already play vampires and they already want this card. They already play, what's the 1 mana card that gives something -2/-2 again? They already play an aura that does this. But they also play a Danto Vanguard. Yeah, they already play Deadweight. Thank you, chat. So this is a Deadweight that just makes their own Adanto Vanguard bigger. And they also play like 1 or 2 other vampires. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. I don't know about standard. Maybe you play it in your vampires deck if you have enchantment synergies. But in standard, usually things don't have 2 toughness. Usually they have 3 toughness in standard or greater. So this card's not going to be as reliable as you'd think. If you're playing a vampires deck specifically, then I would see sideboarding a few of these cards. But in historic, this card's very good. Alright, moving on to Grizzly Ritual. It's a 6-mana sorcery. This better do something crazy. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Create 2 blood tokens. Okay. Alright. Persistent Specimen is a 1-mana 1/1 skeleton. 3 mana, return Persistent Skeleton. Did I say skeleton? Persistent Specimen. 3 mana, return Persistent Specimen from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. Alright. Kind of like a reassembling skeleton. Moving on to Pointed Discussion is a 3-mana sorcery. You draw 2, lose 2, then create a blood token. I mean, this isn't terrible. Like, if blood tokens were clues, this would be much better. But it does provide card selection. It's not card advantage, but it's card selection for 1 mana with a clue token. Three for divination plus a blood token is not that bad. I think this is pretty good in limited. I don't think it sees play in constructed though. Like there's Deadly Dispute in constructed where you sacrifice a creature, draw 2, and make a treasure token. 2 mana. Alright. Moving on to Undying Malice is a 1 mana instant until end of turn target creature gains whenever this creature dies. Return to the battlefield tap under its owner's control with the +1/+1 counter on it. Now, this card's okay in limited, but in constructed we have Malakir Rebirth, which is much better than this because Malakir Rebirth is also a tap land. Moving on to Vampire's Kiss is a 2 mana sorcery. Target player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Create 2 blood tokens. I mean, if you're playing a blood token strategy that's super aggressive, you might want to play this. But the problem is if you're playing the deck that I just mentioned, you want to be playing a creature on turn 2, not Vampire's Kiss. Maybe you play like one of this in your limited deck if you're playing a vampire deck. Moving on to Ancestral Anger is a 1 mana sorcery. Target creature gains trample and gets +X+O till end of turn, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Ancestral Anger in your graveyard, and draw a card. Wow. This is much, much better than the one we already have. Than a couple of the ones we already have. A couple cards that say 1 red mana, give your creature trample, draw a card. And then we have also one that gives all your creatures trample and draws a card. This one gives your things trample, gives 1 creature trample, and buffs the creature and draws a card, which is better. So maybe there's some kind of mono red prowess deck or blue red prowess deck in Historic that wants to play this card with a Sprite Dragon and things like that. I don't think that card's bad. All right, moving on to Blood Petal Celebrant. It's a 2/2/1. It has first strike as long as it's attacking, which is not bad. When Blood Petal Celebrant dies, create a blood token. Okay, this is definitely not as good as another Celebrant that we've had in the format, which is in limited. When it dies, you deal 2 damage to something. Much worse than this. But I don't think this card's necessarily bad, especially in an aggressive red deck in limited. In constructed, maybe this will make it into the 2-drop slot in your vampire tribal deck, especially if it's blood token related. But I don't see this card being as aggressive enough in standard, I guess. We already have Bloodthirsty Adversary, that's a 2 mana 2/2 with haste that also replays cards from your graveyard. So I would say this card's basically limited unless it finds a spot in that vampire deck. Moving on to Bloody Betrayal. It's a 3 mana sorcery. Gain control target creature till end of turn. Untap the creature. Gains haste till end of turn. Create a blood token. We've seen a lot of these threatened effects, especially for 3 mana. This card is one of the better ones. This card does what you want it to do and makes a blood token. So, not that bad. Maybe it's a cool one of. Moving on to End the Festivities. It's a 1 mana sorcery. End of Festivities. The 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So it's opponent and creature and planeswalker. So this basically just, what's the 3 mana Goblin Chain Whirler? This basically is just Chain Whirler without the 3/3 first strike body for 2 less mana. Yeah, this is basically just Whirly Boy. I could definitely see this card being played if there's maybe in Historic or something with like elves or something. But like they also get out of range of 1 damage really fast. Maybe you just do this to beat like I don't know, bird tokens in standard, but I don't know, 1 damage to everything is it's been in the format for like a long time. But it doesn't do 1 to face and 1 to planeswalkers, so this one's definitely better than those, but usually a card like this doesn't really see play. Moving on to Falconry Celebrant. It's a 5 mana 4/4 menace. It enters the battlefield, create 2 blood tokens. That's gonna be good and limited. Unplayable and constructed for 5 mana. You might as well just play Goldspan Dragon. Alright. Flameblast Bolt is a 1 mana instant. Flameblast Bolt deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. Okay. This is definitely just a better Magma Spray. It's just Magma Spray text, except for it can hit planeswalkers. Just much better than Magma Spray. So this definitely gets slotted into like Phoenix decks in Historic. Maybe this sees play in Modern. But like Deals 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker if it dies exile is pretty good. Let's do the situation of where your opponent casts Lulf and then minuses 3 the Lulf and then makes 2/1/1s. You can use this on the Lulf and exile it, and then they can't bring it back with Blood on the Snow. So pretty important. Also, just a really good early game card to be able to deal with your opponent's stuff that has dice triggers. Like if you're playing blue-red Epiphany Goldspan Dragon stuff, and your opponent starts out with like a Shambling Ghast or a an Eye Twitch or something, this is perfect for that. They already play Spikefield Hazard, which would be perfect in that situation anyways. Maybe you don't play this and Spikefield Hazard, and Spikefield Hazard is already a land. That 2 mana is going to have to matter to you a lot in order to like play Spikefield Hazard and this card. Since Spikefield Hazard is already a land, the opportunity cost is so much. I don't know if the word is higher or lower, but the opportunity cost I would say is lower by playing Spikefield Hazard over playing this. The 2-second damage is going to have to be very, very relevant. Moving on to Lacerate Flesh. It's a 5-mana sorcery, deals 4 damage to target creature, create a number of blood tokens equal to the amount of excess damage up to that creature this way. Pretty cool. The excess damage thing's coming back to this format that we've seen in an earlier format. I believe it was Kaldheim with the excess damage stuff. But this is a 5-mana sorcery that deals 4 damage. The red removal spell for 5 mana, which is not that bad in limited. It also creates a blood token and might create multiple blood tokens, which I think is pretty good in limited. It might actually be like premier common removal. Moving on to Lightning Wolf. It's a 4-mana 4/3 with 1 and a red. Lightning Wolf gains first strike till end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Activating only as a sorcery is a lot worse for this. It's also 4 mana. This was 3 mana. It could even see constructed play, but 4 mana 4/3. It's a little bit whatever. Getting first strike, you can definitely just attack through some big boards with it for sure. How do I rate this? Limited. Moving on to Pyrospawn, it's a 6-mana 6/4. When it dies, it deals 3 damage to any target. Of course, it's limited, 6 mana. Not really too much to say here, but if you do have some like dies, triggers, and synergies in your deck, this card will be really good. All right, moving on to Sure Strike. This is a reprint that has happened a billion times. It's a 2-mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike till end of turn. This is a premier red limited combat trick. All you have to know. Pretty unplayable and constructed though. Moving on to Voldaren Epicure. It's a 1-mana 1/1 vampire. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Create a blood token. You're playing a very low to the ground vampire deck that also wants blood tokens. This is very good. 1 mana, deal 1 damage to them. Start attacking them with your vampires and making blood tokens. If you have the synergies, this is pretty good. Constructed, I'm not sure. We'll have to see. Crushing Canopy is also a reprint. 3 mana, instant. Choose 1, destroy a creature with flying or destroy an enchantment. Which is basically the opposite of Tangle Trap. Tangle Trap is a 2-mana card that we have in standard right now. Instant. Deal 5 damage to a creature with flying, which kills all the flyers anyway in the format. It destroys an artifact. Important with cards like Astika's Chariot. This kills an enchantment or a flyer, so this would be in niche sideboards. Moving on to Nature's Embrace, 3-mana aura. Enchant creature or land. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +2/+2. As long as enchanted permanent is a land, it has to add 2 mana of any one color. Wow. I might play this in my commander deck. I mean, it's pretty versatile. Usually auras like this are either land or creature. This is like either one. It is 3 mana, which is a lot. But my commander specifically has a combo that could work with this. But as far as limited play, pretty good. Competitive play, not so much. Moving on to Rural Recruit is a 4-mana 1/1 human peasant with training. 4-mana 1/1. This ability, before I read it, is going to have to be really good. When it enters the battlefield, make a 3/1. Okay, I mean, that's pretty good for limited. So it makes the thing that trains it. I feel like that's pretty good in limited. 4-mana 1/1 that makes a 3/1. So 4-mana 5/2. As far as stats are concerned, that also just makes the 1/1 automatically become a 2/2. think this card's pretty good and limited. Moving on to Spore Crawler, the 3-mana 2/2. Fungus. Whenever Spore Crawler dies, draw a card. This is pretty good and limited. Trade with something, draw a card, get that card advantage. Constructed, not playable. Moving on to Sporeback Wolf. This art is so good. 2-mana 2/2 Wolf. As long as it's your turn, Sporeback Wolf gets +0/+2. So it's a 2/4 on your turn. So it attacks well into your opponent's blockers. I guess. Curve filler for a werewolf deck. Moving on to Toxic Scorpion. It's 2-mana 1/1 Scorpion with Death Touch. Whenever Toxic Scorpion enters the battlefield, another target creature you control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Okay. So you could combo this with a card that like deals damage to creatures by itself with it when it's not attacking, or you can just give it to your huge thing, and then just have it ram into your opponent with Death Touch, and your opponent has to decide if they want to block it or not. The fact that this also has Death Touch is pretty cool. So Death Touch in green is pretty good and limited, because there's some cards that say like deals power equal to its toughness to another target creature, or like or deals damage equal to its power. I mean, or you know, this creature fights this creature. Cards like that in standard. Moving on to Witch's Web. Is a 2-mana instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains reach till end of turn. Untap it. This is a pretty good combat trick for green. Being able to untap your thing really takes your opponent off guard. When your opponent, when you're like in a racing situation, you attack them and they don't block, then they attack you back, and you Witch's Web, untap your thing and +3/+3 and block it. That's just like blowout. You just win the game on the spot. Like, this card is like really good and limited. Constructed, no chance. Moving on to Wolf Strike. It's a 3-mana instant. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 till end of turn if it's night. Then it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. 3-mana instant speed fight spell. We have a 2-mana instant speed fight spell in historic right now, in standard right now, anyways. This card's not playable in constructed. But if it's night, giving something +2/+0 and then deal damage equal to its power, it's not a fight spell. It's kind of better than a fight spell. I think this might be like Premier Removal in Werewolves in limited, but in standard, I don't see this card seeing play. Moving on to Ceremonial Knife is a 1-mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. Equip for 2. Now, the fact that this card has equipped 2 and it's 1 mana makes it a lot worse, but it could go in a blood token strategy with vampires, but I don't think this card's playable in constructed. Maybe in limited, this card's pretty good. Moving on to Evolving Wilds. Now, this is a reprint of course, Evolving Wilds that have been printed in like 18 million sets before. Sacrifice it, search for a basic land, put in the battlefield, tapped, and shuffle. Also, this art's pretty cool. We have Kaya Geist Hunter, which is a mythic rare 3-mana planeswalker. +1. Creatures you control gain Death Touch till end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter on up to one target creature you control. Creature token you control. Wow, that makes that a lot worse. Creatures you controlled gain Death Touch. Now, maybe you play an Abzan deck with Finn and kill your opponent with toxic counters. -2 is until end of turn if one or more tokens will be created under your control. Twice that many are created instead. So this doesn't draw cards, and it doesn't kill creatures, and it doesn't make creatures either. -6, exile all cards from graveyards, then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. I don't like this card. I mean, it's a 3-mana planeswalker. The only time, I mean, if you play like Orzhov tokens, maybe. So end of turn if one or more tokens will be created under your control, twice that many of those. It specifically doesn't say creature tokens. Maybe you build like some kind of tokens deck that makes like treasures. Like this, you can -2 this and like Unexpected Windfall will make 4 treasures, or like -2 this and Deadly Dispute make 2 treasures. I don't know. Someone's going to have to really convince me with a deck list for me to think this card's good. Like, you could play this and then play Starnheim Unleashed and then make double the Angels. Like, that takes a lot of setup. I don't know about this card. Alright, moving on. Foreboding Statues, a 3-mana 1/2 artifact creature construct. You can tap it to add a mana of any color, so it's a mana dork. Put an omen counter on it. At any of your end step, if there are 3 or more omen counters on it, Foreboding Statue, untap it, then transform it. Let's see. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add 1 mana of any color as a 5/5. It's a 3-mana 1/2. 3 turns later, becomes a 5/5 that still adds mana. I can see this card being pretty good in limited. In limited, this goes from 3 to 5, or if you miss your land drop, 3 to 4, and also just becomes a 5/5. I think it's pretty good in limited. Moving on to Welcoming Vampires, a 3-mana 2/3 flyer. Whenever 1 or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Okay. I mean, so if you're playing like a Mardu Vampire deck, and then you play this on turn 3, and then play a creature on turn 4, draw a card. Turn 5, play a creature, draw a card. I mean, or you just play this in a different deck that doesn't have to be vampires, but I think this card's pretty good. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this card was good. It also has flying. Alright, moving on to Audrey Blood Curse. It's a 3-mana 3/3. Now, I'm going to preface this with this card has a lot of text, okay? But just bear with me. It says a lot of things that are nothing and something at the same time. Alright. 3 mana. Legendary creature Vampire Soldier. When Audrey Blood Curse enters the battlefield, create X blood tokens, where X is the number of abilities from among Flying, First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance on among creatures you control. Count each ability only once. Yeah. So, this is a lot of text to just make blood tokens. I don't know how I feel about this card, and it's kind of funny to me that it has so much text and does so little things at the same time. It is a 3-mana 3/3, so if you have a limited deck in these colors, you're playing it. But I'm not excited for this. Maybe if it said enter the battlefield and attacks. Maybe if it had like one keyword, like First Strike, Vigilance, I don't know, Haste. Just something. But yeah, it's basically like a 3-mana 3/3 make your opponent read a lot. But anyways, that is all we have for you today. That is the end of the set. Make sure to check out one of these other videos right here. If you haven't seen the ones before, they're available on this channel as well. So, have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.